I placed the salad bowl carefully between the sparkling wine glasses and polished silverware. No one acknowledged me, not even her. My mother, Delia Whitmore, was in the middle of one of her favorite tales. How she salvaged a dinner party in Paris by telling the chef to season the beef like an American. She always told it like she'd saved the entire continent. Then mid-story she turned to me. Her face blank. No smile, no kindness. Just the words. The help doesn't dine with family. Claire, you know that. Laughter rippled down the table. Soft, effortless, as if it wasn't a blow. But it landed. My father, Charles, lifted his wine glass with the same distant elegance he always wore and chimed in. Well, at least this year the vinaigrette made it to the table. That drew a real laugh from Grant, seated smugly in his personalized polo. Then came the part that wouldn't let go. A distant cousin, one I barely remembered, leaned toward her neighbor and murmured, just loudly enough, "Didn't she used to work here?" Delia didn't correct her. Instead, she extended a perfectly folded napkin toward me with the regal grace of someone granting a small favor, then motioned to a spot where wine had dribbled. I lingered there a moment longer than politeness allowed, enough to sour the air with discomfort, but not enough to offer them the satisfaction of reaction. Then I took my seat at the far end, next to a fern. The conversation continued without pause. Forks clinked. Laughter resumed. I faded back into my usual role, the extra. Across the table, Miles, my husband, met my eyes. He offered a faint shrug, the kind that meant let it go. He was good at that. Letting things go. Including me sometimes. As Grant launched into a speech about quarterly numbers and upward momentum, I poked at my salad, thinking of the contract I'd signed 6 months earlier. Pinehurst Lodge had been the Whitmore summer retreat for over 2 decades. Same lakeside cabin, same staff, same glass water bottles labeled with our family name. Only now that name was on something else. I didn't move when Delia requested more napkins or when Charles questioned the wine selection like it had personally insulted him. I folded my own napkin, laid it beside my untouched meal and stood. By dessert, I was already on the phone with Ethan, the lodge manager. My voice didn't waver. "Make the announcement tomorrow," I said. "After the main course. Let it sink in with the roast." When I was 10, Grant had a surprise birthday party with balloons, a magician, and a baseball glove-shaped cake. I got a quiet reservation at a steakhouse where no one asked what I wanted. The waiter called me sir because of my haircut. No one corrected him. My father just sipped his wine and said, "She's always walked her own path, this one." That was the tone always. Like I was a side note in a story I didn't write. At family gatherings, I was the one asked to check the rolls or help plate hors d'oeuvres. Grant gave toasts. At a cousin's wedding, the photographer mistook me for catering. Delia smiled and said, "She does love to be helpful," before turning to rave about the floral centerpieces. I wasn't angry, not then. Just invisible. I graduated with top honors. Full scholarship to a leading engineering school. But in our family, achievement didn't count unless it came with heels and applause. My father never yelled. That wasn't his method. He corrected with quiet disappointment. When I wore slacks one Thanksgiving, he scanned me head to toe and said, "I miss when girls dressed like girls." His version of discipline. Shame draped in nostalgia. And Grant, golden boy of the Whitmores, got promoted young, drove a sleek Mercedes. His girlfriends mocked my tech stuff, and laughed when I said I liked hiking over bottomless brunch. Delia would shine with pride and say, "See, Grant understands how the world turns." Never mind that the software keeping his company's data safe was mine, or that I paid off my loans before 30. I never asked for applause, so they gave it to him. Still I kept showing up. Holidays, dinners, Pinehurst weekends. I poured the wine, took the photos. Never in them. Once, when I was 8, I stood on the cabin's porch folding towels and whispered to no one. Maybe if I'm helpful enough, they'll save me a seat. I never said it again. But I never stopped hoping. This year, I watched Dalia glance at the lodge's reservation list and say to the maitre d', 4 for dinner. No, not 5. 4's fine. She didn't even glance back. That was the moment. The one that stripped it all away. Not the words, but how easily they came. The certainty I wouldn't need a chair. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I'd spent my whole life trying to be included. This time I wasn't here to earn a seat. I was here to own the table. It was meant to be a celebration. After 35 years in strategic consulting, my father, Charles Whitmore, was retiring. I'd taken it upon myself, as the eldest, the capable one, to plan every detail. Weeks of effort. The venue reserved. Custom menu curated. Invitations printed on premium linen cardstock. I even tracked down a jazz trio from New Orleans, the same group he once raved about at a business retreat. They flew in just for this night. When we walked into the private dining room at the country club, everything was flawless. Crisp tablecloths. His favorite scotch waiting by his seat. Floral arrangements in the exact navy and ivory hues of his old office. And for a moment I let myself hope. Maybe this time I'd be seen. Charles stood up before dessert. He never overflowed with emotion, but he was smooth, measured. A man used to commanding a room. He raised his glass. Thank you all for being here. To my wife, Dalia. My anchor, the one who keeps me presentable. To my son, Grant, who flew in from Chicago last minute and is already outpacing my own milestones. Waited. And of course, to the team at Hillside for their impeccable service. Let's give them a round of applause. There it was. Gratitude for the waitstaff. Not a word for the daughter who made the night possible. He sat back down. I stared at him. He looked at me, calm and unfazed, and murmured beneath his breath, "Don't sulk. It's a poor look in front of potential investors." Dalia leaned in gently, patted his hand, and added in a soft tone, "She knows we're grateful." That was the moment. No outburst, no scene. Just something final. Quiet but defining. It didn't shatter me, it rewired something. After the applause and cake and clinking glasses, I left. Slipped out past the coat room, past the valet. No tears. I climbed into the rental car, one I paid for myself since Grant said the family funds were tight, and opened my phone. Voicemail from Dalia. Probably a pocket dial. Her voice came through, low and clear. "She's sweet," she said, likely to a friend. "But she just fades. Grant, now he lights up a room. Claire's just." Polite laughter swallowed the rest. I listened to it twice. Then deleted it. That night I didn't make a vow. I made a decision. They didn't need to notice me. Because for the first time I truly saw myself. And I was done asking for a seat at their table. When the Whitmores checked into Pinehurst Lodge the next summer, I was guest number 42. Same surname. Same suite. No one blinked. That was the intention. 6 months earlier, I had acquired majority ownership through a holding company called Whitmore Equity Holdings. The name made me smile. No one noticed that the reservation policies had changed. Or that the VIP discount quietly vanished. No one asked why I arrived early or strolled the grounds every afternoon with a staff badge tucked discreetly into my cardigan. They were too busy nitpicking. Check-in was a nightmare this year, Grant grumbled over toast. The girl actually asked for my ID. Like I haven't been coming here my whole life. Dalia didn't look up from her tea. "It's lost its charm," she said. "Feels corporate now." Charles agreed. "Too many rules. No warmth." I sipped my coffee in silence. Badge turned inward. Expression neutral. The irony sizzled beneath my skin. The rules. The schedule. The filtered water, the improved air systems, the fair wages and health benefits. Mine too. But that wasn't the point. The point was to wait. Let them grumble. Let them forget I was there. Let them become comfortable again. That afternoon, as I reviewed the evening prep with staff, a young line cook, Matteo, approached, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Whitmore," he asked, Want to confirm the final dinner selections before we print the menus? I paused. Not because I had to think, but to let the moment settle. Keep the trout, I said. Swap the dessert. Lemon shortbread instead of chocolate. My father never eats chocolate. He nodded and left. No one in my family noticed. And I didn't offer an explanation. Let them find out on their own who was pulling the strings. That night, Miles leaned over during dinner with his usual careful optimism and said, "Maybe we should leave a positive review. Might help the staff out." I gave a polite nod. I said nothing. Later that evening, I stood alone at the edge of the back lawn. The lodge behind me shimmered in candlelight and conversation. Inside, Grant held court again, boasting about a business deal I knew had already fallen apart. Dahlia was lavishing praise on the crab cakes she hadn't paid for. Charles was telling a new staffer how much the place had changed, and not for the better. I looked out over the lake, calm and gleaming in the twilight. Then I took out my phone. Ethan answered on the second ring. "Hey, boss. Make the announcement tomorrow," I said. "Right before dessert. Let them eat lemon shortbread and wonder." A nod to the old brand colors, a bid for continuity. But the navy no longer matched the drapes, the table runners, the polished welcome signage at the lodge's grand entry. Those had shifted to deep green and stone gray. New tones, understated and modern. Intentional. Just before the reception began, Dahlia swept into the atrium with her signature stride. High heels clicking a tempo of entitlement. She scanned the space, found me near the welcome desk, and smiled as if we were co-hosts of a memory. "Lovely touch," she said, gesturing toward the string quartet. "I assume you brought them in." "No," I replied. "That was Ethan." She looked around again. Took in the rebranded logo etched into the glass over the fireplace. The plaque near the staircase listing new board members. Not a single old name on it. And then her gaze landed on the podium. She recognized the cream cardstock resting there. Familiar except for one detail. The host listed in fine gold lettering. Claire Whitmore, Managing Director. Her smile faltered. Just slightly. But enough. Guests arrived in slow waves. Seasoned donors, dignitaries from the Conservation Trust, a handful of staff now promoted into leadership roles. They nodded when they saw me. Spoke my name aloud. Not Miss Whitmore or Charles's daughter. Just Claire, as if they'd always known I was the one at the helm. I waited until the room quieted. Then I stepped to the microphone. No paper. No notes. Just truth, rehearsed through years of being overlooked. Thank you all for coming. Pinehurst Lodge has always stood for more than luxury. It stood for continuity. And now we begin a new chapter. One rooted in respect, sustainability, equity, and yes, family. But not the kind defined by bloodlines or surnames. Kind you choose. The kind that builds. I looked toward the back of the room where Miles stood. He raised his glass. Quiet. Steady. With him, Matteo Ethan, the marketing director who'd rebranded the lodge's identity after years of being dismissed by Charles for being too ambitious. Then I scanned the rest of the crowd. Charles and Grant were nowhere to be seen. Grant had left that morning, checked out early citing urgent business in Chicago. Charles, I heard, had a headache. Dahlia lingered for the whole reception, stone-faced but gracious, the way someone does when they realize they're no longer essential but still want to be remembered. She left without saying goodbye. I didn't mind. As the guests filtered out and the chandeliers dimmed, I stood for a moment alone in the atrium, the hum of the night still around me. And for the first time, there was no voice behind me correcting my posture. No tight smiles. No withheld praise. No eyes watching to see if I'd earn a seat. I already had it. I had the table, the building, the narrative. And I'd built it not from vengeance, but from precision, from remembering, from refusing to disappear. Outside, the lake shimmered under the moonlight. Inside, I turned off the last light myself. The new era didn't start with applause. Started with presence. I waited until the room buzzed with anticipation. champagne flutes chiming, hushed conversations rising, before I walked onto the small raised platform at the front of the ballroom. The house lights softened. Behind me the projector flickered on. "Good evening," I began, letting my words settle over the murmurs. "I'm Claire Whitmore, though tonight, that name might mean something new to some of you." A polite ripple of laughter. Clicked the remote. The screen displayed a sweeping drone shot of the lodge's planned expansion. "We're adding a wellness pavilion, several family cottages, and a community kayak launch," I said. "This vision is financed by an initiative we'll unveil this fall." I paused, letting their curiosity build. "The Cecilia Fund." I saw Dahlia's posture straighten. Charles gripped his glass. "This isn't about heritage," I continued. "It's about honor." Next slide. A grainy photograph of a woman in her 60s, standing outside a roadside motel in small-town Oregon. "That's my grandmother, Cecilia Maynard. She cleaned those rooms by hand for 20 years. She raised me in the gaps while my parents pursued names on dinner invitations." I looked straight ahead. No glance in her direction needed. "She taught me that dignity isn't inherited. It's forged when no one's watching. And that silence can be more powerful than any outburst." The room fell silent. "The Cecilia Fund will award scholarships to first-generation women pursuing degrees in engineering, architecture, and design." Not a tremble in my voice. A solitary clap echoed from the back, then another, until the space filled with genuine applause. But their approval wasn't my goal. I turned toward my family. Grant first, then Charles, and finally Dahlia. "I didn't need a plaque with my name," I said. "I needed to stop watching mine be erased." With that I stepped down, not back into their circle, but into my own resolve. I skipped the Sunday brunch. Let them occupy the long mahogany table without me, whispering their version of events. I didn't correct a thing. Instead, I walked the grounds with Ethan at my side. We inspected the lake's new filtration system, confirmed staff schedules, and reviewed final permits for the new cabins. Staffers greeted me, not out of formality, but as part of their daily routine. This time I wasn't performing. I was simply present. I passed the old Whitmore cabin and spotted Dahlia behind the lace curtains, watching. I didn't pause. I didn't look up. There was nothing left to say. I ignored Grant's text. "You made your statement." I let Charles's voicemail go unanswered. This could have been handled quietly. They never realized how quiet I could be, until it had impact. Dahlia emailed later, measured and distant, offering to reconnect privately as mother and daughter. I archived it unread. That evening I lingered on the dock. The lake was mirror still. The sky a soft wash of lavender. Miles joined me silently. After a few moments he asked, "Why didn't you talk to me about this?" I didn't turn around. "You never asked," I replied. He said nothing more and walked back to the lodge. I let him go, understanding that this moment wasn't about who stayed. It was about who I'd finally stopped waiting for. Later I packed my bags methodically. No rush, no drama. No note left behind. No tearful farewells. For years I showed up, hoping they'd carve out room for me. Folding napkins, forcing smiles, seeking their permission to belong. Now I wasn't asking to be included. I was choosing whom to invite into my life. And that quiet, unspoken decision resonated more loudly than any applause they'd once withheld.